Hi guys, David O'Sullivan here, and in this video I'm going to be ranking and reviewing all of the films that I saw this month. I saw about 9 films this March. There are a couple of films that I still might check out. Steven Soderbergh's Unsane I might see at some point. Also, I haven't had the chance to see Love, Simon yet either, but for the most part I've seen everything I wanted to see this month. And with the exception of Annihilation that I saw that came out on Netflix earlier this month, I haven't reviewed any of the films that I've seen this month. So I thought I'd do this video in which I would give my quick thoughts on all of the 9 films I've seen and kind of rank them and give you my quick thoughts on what I thought about them. So with all that said, let's kick this off now with the first film on the list. And coming in at the bottom of the pile at number 9 I have Red Sparrow. And I didn't hate Red Sparrow, but I didn't necessarily like it either. It was alright. I could see what they were going for. They kind of accomplished what they were trying to do. I could see what they were trying to do. And I guess if you like the kind of film that Red Sparrow was trying to be, you probably like the film, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it. I could see what they were going for, but for me it just didn't quite work. And one of the biggest problems I have with Red Sparrow is that it just felt so much longer than it actually was. It was just really sluggish, it really dragged, it felt so long. And there were some twists and turns along the way that kept me kind of interested and engaged. But that aside, it was a real drag, this movie. It was a real slog to get through, and I didn't necessarily enjoy it. I could see what they were going for, but for me it didn't quite work. The performances are alright, I guess, but I just can't buy Jennifer Lawrence as a Russian spy. I mean, I think Jennifer Lawrence is great, but she just does not look Russian. Her Russian accent wasn't convincing, it just kept coming and going. For me it just didn't quite work, and I didn't really enjoy this film. So there we go, Red Sparrow at number 9. Coming in number 8 is Pacific Rim Uprising. And like Red Sparrow, I didn't hate this film, it just didn't really make me feel anything, you know what I mean? The action was kind of cool, I kind of enjoyed it for what it was. You know, it's just a big, dumb, fun movie about big robots fighting big monsters. And I didn't necessarily love the first Pacific Rim, but what I did love about the first one is that it had its own distinctive look and feel and style to it. You know, it was directed by Guillermo del Toro. And for me, the big difference between this movie and the first Pacific Rim is that the first film, it knew exactly what it was, and it knew exactly what it was trying to be, and it absolutely nailed it. I didn't love the film, but I did enjoy the first movie, and I really got what they were going for, and I think it really worked. This movie, I could see what they were going for. They were going for a fun Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibe, big robots fighting big monsters, a kind of throwback to the kind of fun, you know, 70s, 80s action movies, but for me it just really fell flat and didn't work. Like I said, I didn't hate it, but it didn't make me feel anything. I was just sitting there and it just didn't really evoke any kind of emotional response from me. And there were some things I liked about this movie. I really liked John Boyega. I think he's always great. He was giving his all in this movie. The young girl, Kaylee Spaney, I thought she was really great as well. Her character was kind of shoehorned into the movie. She didn't really need to be there, but I did really like her and the performance that she gave. But despite a few of the performances there from the actors, I just really didn't enjoy this movie. And okay, the robots fighting monsters were kind of cool, I guess, but it kind of just felt empty and hollow and shallow, and just because all the human stuff, all the relationships and the drama between the human characters just felt so cringy to me. It felt just so artificial, so fake, so forced. And it's a shame because the performances there from the actors, namely John Boyega and Kaylee Spaney, I think they were really great. They were really giving it their all, but despite their best efforts, it just didn't quite work for me, and it kind of made it even more cringy seeing John Boyega doing a really great job in a bad movie. It was kind of cringy, to be honest with you, all the stuff with the human characters. And that stuff I kind of liked in the first movie. The difference between this movie and the first movie is that the first movie had a real heart. You know, you could feel the passion there from Del Toro. And I didn't necessarily love the first film, but I really, you know, felt it at times, the stuff between the human characters. But in this movie, it just wasn't there, and it just felt really cringy and artificial, and I just really didn't buy it. So I didn't necessarily enjoy this movie, unfortunately. And coming in at number 7, I have Game Night. And I didn't dislike this film. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I didn't love the film either. I can totally understand why there's a lot of people that are really loving this movie. I think it did, unlike the previous 2 films, I think it did accomplish what it was going for. But I'm not necessarily a big fan of these kind of comedy films. I'm not really a big fan of most comedy films nowadays, unless it's Edgar Wright, say. You know, I enjoyed it. It was perfectly fine. It was perfectly sufficient. It was watchable. It was entertaining at times. But you know, there's just moments in this film for me where I was on board at certain points and I was enjoying it, and then some things would happen and it would just totally take me out of the film, and I was like, what's that? And it just, there was twists and turns in this movie, but it kind of went a little bit too far to the point where it just kept taking me out of the film. I'm like, I can't buy into that. It felt like they were just throwing in twists and turns just for the sake of it. And there's even a moment towards the end of the film where you think there's going to be another twist, and it turns out there isn't. It's just the character joking. But up until that point, the movie had so many twists and turns that were so unbelievable that I wouldn't have put it past the movie for that to have been real as well. The movie was perfectly fine. I didn't love it, but I think it was perfectly sufficient. It was perfectly fine. It was watchable. It was entertaining at times. So I didn't love the movie, but I think it was alright. Now, coming in at number 6 is A Wrinkle in Time, and I actually enjoyed this movie. I went in expecting not to like it because it got quite a mixed response from critics and audiences. Not everyone had loved this film, and I was worried that I wasn't going to like it, but I actually enjoyed it. Maybe it's because my expectations were lower. I went in with tempered expectations, but look, it wasn't like a perfect film. It wasn't absolutely amazing. I think it was a little messy at times, in terms of the story. It was a little bit all over the place, but apparently it's a very unfilmable book. I haven't read the book, but apparently it's a very hard book to adapt to film. A lot of people thought it was unfilmable, and I can see at times when I was watching certain sequences in the movie, I was like, yeah, if the book's anything close to this, I could totally understand why a lot of people thought it was unfilmable. But I think for the most part, Ava DuVernay did a really great job. And yeah, I think the script could have been better. There were some dialogue exchanges that were kind of like, ugh, oh my god, I can't believe that was in there, really. But for the most part, I think this movie had heart. And like some of the other movies on this list, like Pacific Rim, for example, that made me feel nothing, this movie, it had a heart, and I felt something, you know what I mean? I didn't love the film, I didn't think it was amazing, but it made me feel something, and I enjoyed myself watching this movie, and I really liked that at its core, even though it's this crazy, cosmic, space trip adventure movie. At its core, it was about a young girl trying to reconnect with her father. It was about this young girl going on this journey to accepting herself for who she is and believing in herself, and I found that quite inspiring and uplifting. It was really refreshing seeing the movie, and like I said, it wasn't perfect, it had some flaws, but I just loved the fact that this movie had a very inspirational, uplifting kind of spirit and message to it. And it was a breath of fresh air to see a movie that didn't have any darkness or mean streak to it. It was a film about love that was also lovingly made, and it was a movie that made me feel better, you know what I mean? I think more kids' movies, because it essentially is a children's film, and I think more children's movies should be like this, it doesn't have any darkness or mean streak to it. It's very uplifting, very inspiring, very emotional, and I actually enjoyed myself watching this movie. Coming in at number 5 is Wes Anderson's Isle of Dogs. So I didn't necessarily love this movie, but I did really like it. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. It was quirky, it was original, it was different, and I liked that. I'm not necessarily a massive Wes Anderson fan, although I did really enjoy Grand Budapest Hotel. The reason why I didn't love this film is that I felt like it was quite slow, it did drag at times, and even though I liked the kind of quirky, offbeat kind of nature of the film, it did get quite repetitive at times. It did become quite tiring and repetitive as it went on, and it's only an hour and 40 minutes, so it's not actually that long, but at the same time it's like it was very slow paced. There were times in this movie that really dragged, I thought, and I don't know, because I really loved the trailer. I was expecting to really love this movie, and I did really like it, but I don't know, maybe I think it would have just made a better short film, because it's like I enjoyed the trailer probably more than I enjoyed the film, for example, and it was a really quirky, unique, original concept, and I love what Wes Anderson did with the movie. I also liked that it was more about the humanity of the dogs. It wasn't really about the human characters, it was more about these dogs and how their kind of characteristics reflect kind of us, kind of like in Planet of the Apes, how the apes are almost a reflection. In these new movies, the apes are almost a reflection of us as a species, and us as people, and it was kind of the same thing in this movie. Is that the Isle of Dogs, the dogs were almost like us as people, and we got to see the quirks and the relationships between the dogs, which I liked. The voice performances all around were great, but like I said, I felt like it would have made a better short film maybe. I enjoyed it, I thought it was good, but it just felt like it was just stretched out a bit, and it got a little repetitive, a little tiring, went on a little bit too long, I felt. So I enjoyed the movie, but I didn't love it. And coming in at number 4 is Tomb Raider, and this is the one that I was actually pleasantly surprised by, because I went in trepidatious. I was like, oh, is this going to be good? Because so many video games nowadays are just complete trash. But for me anyway, I haven't seen every video game movie. I'm not a massive video game fan, but for me, this is the best video game movie I've seen. I actually really enjoyed this film, and I'm really glad I did, because I like the trailers, and I actually had a really good time watching this movie. I loved Alicia Vikander in the role of Lara Croft, and you can make an argument that the film itself wasn't as good as her performance, and I do agree with that, but Alicia Vikander and her performance as Lara Croft was such a big part of the movie that I kind of overlooked a lot of the other things, because the story was pretty uninspired. It wasn't very original, but I think that it was very faithful to the new 2013 reboot. Visually anyway, it looked very faithful. She looks just like Lara Croft from the games, and I enjoyed this movie. You know, I had a good time. It was fun. It was entertaining. You know, it moved well. It was well paced, well acted. I really liked the performances by the actors. There were some downsides, like I said. The story itself wasn't that great, but you know, I enjoyed the action sequences. I think Lara Croft was a really great character, and I really loved Alicia Vikander's performance as that character. I think she was really great. She really carried the movie. It's not going to be an entirely memorable film. It's not a film that I'm going to like go back and watch over and over again, but I did enjoy myself watching this movie, and I did think it was really great. So there we go, Tomb Raider at number 4. And coming in at number 3 is Mary Magdalene. And I was actually surprised that I liked this movie a whole lot more than I thought I was going to. I didn't think it was going to be that great. I heard some not so great things, but I actually really like what they did with this movie. Garth Davis, I think, director of Lion, did this movie. And what I liked is that even though we've had a lot of films like this before, you know, telling the story of Jesus, this film was different in that it told it from the perspective of Mary Magdalene, portrayed by Rooney Mara. And I think the performances were great. Rooney Mara as Mary Magdalene, as well as Joaquin Phoenix as Jesus. Everyone else was great as well, you know, Chiwetel Ejiofor was in there also. Performances all round were great, but what I really liked about this film, what I really appreciated, was that it was very subtle, it's very understated. You know, a lot of films like this, when they're, you know, religious films telling these kind of stories, they're really kind of over the top and really trying to be some big flashy over the top thing. What I really liked about this film, really admired, is that it felt a lot more real and grounded than other versions of the story that I've seen before, because it was more, you know, subtle. It was more subdued and understated, which I really liked. Nothing was kind of overplayed. It wasn't some big flashy over the top thing. It was just very, and I could see why someone would not like this movie. I could see why someone could come out and say, oh, it was a bit boring, you know, it was a bit underwhelming, but I like the fact that they underplayed it, you know, and it wasn't all really kind of big and over the top. And I enjoyed this movie. Like I said, I didn't love it, you know what I mean? It's not a kind of film that I'm going to go back and watch over and over again, but I did really like this movie a whole lot more than I thought I was going to, and I really like what they did with this movie, and I thought it was really great. Now, coming in number 2 is a film I've seen most recently, and it's Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. And yeah, this movie was great. I do have a couple of issues with it. I felt like it was a little bit longer than it needed to be. But even though it did feel long, there weren't any moments in the film that dragged me. It didn't feel slow, you know, it didn't feel sluggish. It was a very well-paced film. It's constantly moving. I don't think it's one of the best films I've seen in a while, but it's certainly one of the most immersive films I've seen in a while. It's such an incredibly immersive and engaging film, this. I was worried going in because of, you know, the virtual reality, or this kind of virtual world, or these kind of crazy, you know, characters and stuff, that it was going to become a little, like, messy and all over the place. But the difference between, say, for example, this and Pacific Rim, in Pacific Rim, the action's more just visual noise because you don't really care. In this movie, you do care, and it's a testament to Spielberg in that all this crazy stuff's going on, but you can see everything that's happening. You're never once lost. You know, you can see everything that's going on. You can follow everything that's happening, even though there's so much going on. And I kind of have to see this movie at least a couple more times, because there's bound to have been so much that I missed. But Spielberg directs it so well that you can, you know, the geography of the scenes, you know, you can see everything that's happening. It's really well shot, you know, it's incredibly immersive. Unlike other action movies where it's just really crazy all over the place, you can't see what the hell is happening, it just takes you out of the movie. In this, it was so well done, it was so well shot, that it really immersed you into this world. It was so incredibly engaging, and like I said, you actually cared, because obviously this movie was fantastic from a visual standpoint. It was really cool, really incredible, dazzling action sequences, but you cared about the characters. I like that, you know, we spent a lot of time with Ty Sheridan as Wade, as well as Olivia Cook as Samantha, and I really liked those two in the movie. I think their performance is really great, and they had really great chemistry, and I really liked their relationship in the film, you know, because you cared about them as characters, you cared about what you were seeing on screen. It wasn't just visual noise. It's not one of my favourite Spielberg movies. I don't think it's one of the best films he's done in a while, but I love that it felt like a real throwback to classic Spielberg. It really felt like a classic Spielberg movie, and just like a classic adventure movie in general, you know, but with, you know, crazy modern, you know, style visual effects and CGI. It was just really great. But it felt like a true Spielberg movie, you know, you cared, you know, it had the relationships between the characters. Obviously, it does at times fall into those stereotypical Spielberg tropes, but no one does it better than Spielberg, and you cared about the characters. It had the classic Spielberg humour in there, had the classic Spielberg baddie played by Ben Mendelsohn. He was great, and I just love the characters in this movie. The story, you know, it's pretty, you know, straightforward, but it's exactly what it needed to be. You know, a Willy Wonka kind of thing where they're looking for this Easter egg to try and get the keys to the kingdom. And yeah, you know, it wasn't anything groundbreaking, this film, but I think Spielberg directed the hell out of it. I love the performances all around, and it was an incredibly immersive and engaging film. Like, I was sucked into this movie. You know, I don't think it's one of the best films of the year or anything, but I did love the fact that it was so incredibly immersive and engaging, and I never for once lost interest or got bored. And I think it's a testament to Spielberg as a director that he was able to do such a good job in this movie, because any lesser director, I think it would have been a complete mess. But Spielberg, he imbued it with the harsh and the humour, the energy, the excitement, and it was just a real great ride, this movie, that I really enjoyed. Coming in at number 1, this probably isn't surprising, but it is Alex Garland's Annihilation. I've already reviewed this movie, so if you want to know more of my thoughts on the film, be sure to check out my review. But in short, I just think this is one of the best science fiction films I've seen in quite a while. Probably the best science fiction film since Arrival. I mean, I'd have to think about that. There were so many striking images in this film, and so many shots that just felt so iconic, even though it's just a brand new film I've only just seen. I really feel like this is going to become a film, and I know it's too early to say, but I feel like this is going to become a film that's going to be like a modern classic. It's going to be looked back on in years to come as a sci-fi classic. It just really gave me those vibes. Loved the performances, headlined by Natalie Portman, of course. I just loved the really cool concept of this film, going into the shimmer, how it was kind of, you know, it was warping the character's perception of time and space. I don't know, I just loved how incredibly unique and original this film was. And I just love original sci-fi. Visually striking. I love the music as well. Incredible score there. And just some of the striking visual imagery in this film accompanied with the music, I just absolutely loved. It really gave me vibes of 2001, Blade Runner, Under the Skin. I just love this movie. I can't spend too much time talking about it here because the video would go on way too long, but I loved Annihilation. I definitely recommend seeing it if you get the chance. I mean, it's currently playing on Netflix right now. And yeah, so my pick of the month would be Annihilation. And those are my quick thoughts on all 9 of the films that I saw this month. It was a kind of mixed bag. I mean, most of the films I saw this month I thought were quite underwhelming. It didn't really do it for me, to be honest. But there were some films like Annihilation, like Ready Player One, that I really loved. My best of the month, I think, would obviously most definitely be Annihilation. My worst, probably Red Sparrow. Most disappointing, probably Pacific Rim Uprising, because that really let me down. I think it could have been way better than it was. Most surprising, probably Tomb Raider, because that was a real pleasant surprise to me. I enjoyed it a whole lot more than I thought I would. Most interesting, probably Mary Magdalene, because, you know, I thought that was really interesting what they did with that movie, and I thought it was something quite different, and I actually enjoyed it. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on the films that I saw this month. What do you think? What were the films that you saw this March? What were your favourites? What were the films that you liked the most? What were the films that most disappointed you? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. And if you missed my last review, be sure to go click over here to catch up on my last review, or perhaps down here to catch up on one of my recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.